Her name was Zoya. No one knew much about her, and most did not care to ask. She walked the same halls as everyone else, but to them she was just that poor girl. The one who always wore the same shoes, the one who ate lunch alone, the one who never spoke unless spoken to. The whispers followed her like shadows. Does she even have a home? Why is her hair always messy? Maybe she's mute. But Zoya never responded. Not to the laughter, not to the rumors, not even to the cruel notes stuffed in her locker. She held her books close and kept her head down. It was just another Monday, or so she thought as the lunch bell rang. She headed to her usual quiet corner near the old lockers out of sight, away from the loud crowds. But 3 girls were already there, leaning against the walls like they had been waiting for her. Aisha, Leiba, Noor, the queens of cruel laughter. Well, look who finally decided to show up, Aisha said, smirking. Zoya said nothing. She shifted to turn away, but Noor blocked her path. Where you going? We're just trying to talk. You never talk, remember? Leiba leaned in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Unless maybe you bark instead. All 3 of them laughed. Zoya froze. She blinked, holding back tears, but she didn't step back. You think you're better than us because you stay quiet all the time? Aisha asked, pushing her shoulder lightly just enough to insult without leaving proof. Zoya still didn't speak. That made them angrier. Leiba pulled something from her bag, a crumpled page from Zoya's diary. How she got it, no one knew, but the words written on it were hers. Personal. Painful. Want us to read it out loud? Nor teased. No. Then bark like the little mutt you are. Zoya looked around. A few students had stopped walking. They were watching now, smiling, recording. She could feel her chest tighten, the heat in her ears, the humiliation crawling up her neck like 1,000 insects. Then Leiba raised her phone. This is going online. Right now. So bark. Silence. Seconds passed like hours. Zoya looked down at the floor. Her lips parted, and she let out a single hollow bark. It was the sound of someone breaking. The hallway erupted in laughter. Phones caught every angle. Zoya just stood there still, silent, shattered. But something was about to change, because these girls didn't know who she really was, and what she was about to do would silence every voice that ever laughed at her. Laughter echoed across the hallway like a cruel drumbeat. Students gathered around, some whispering, some openly laughing. Phones were still out, screens glowing, recording every second of her humiliation. Zoya remained still, her eyes low, her face unreadable. But something inside her had shifted. It was not anger. It was not shame. It was focus. She slowly bent down, unzipped her school bag, and placed it gently against the wall. The girls didn't notice. They were too busy laughing, congratulating each other, watching the video loop on screen. She actually did it. Leiba laughed. That's going viral. Aisha turned her phone toward Zoya and mocked her again. Bark one more time, mutt. Do it properly this time. Zoya stood up. Her breathing was steady now. Her posture had changed, no longer small and hunched. She stood taller, firmer. No one noticed. Not yet. Then Noor stepped forward and reached out to touch her again. That's when it happened. One move, one moment. Zoya's left foot shifted back, her weight balanced then in a blink. Her right elbow slammed upward into Noor's chin with brutal precision. The sound cracked like a whip. Noor's phone flew out of her hand as she collapsed backwards, crashing into a row of lockers with a heavy thud. The laughter stopped. Gasps filled the silence. Aisha blinked. What the hell? Zoya didn't answer. She was already turning. Leiba came at her next. The hallway was frozen. Zoya sidestepped Leiba's grab, twisted her wrist midair, spun behind her, and in one smooth motion executed a perfect hip throw. Leiba's body flipped in the air before slamming into the cold floor. She let out a cry and rolled to her side, stunned. That's when someone whispered, barely loud enough to be heard, "Wait, she's not just some quiet girl. I've seen her before." That's the fighter from the underground matches, the one they call the Phantom." The crowd grew silent. Everyone was staring now, but with a different kind of fear and respect. Zoya slowly turned toward Aisha, the last one still standing. Her hands were no longer shaking. Her eyes were locked in, calm, deadly. Aisha stepped back. Her voice cracked. "We were just joking." Zoya's voice was quiet, but every syllable cut through the silence. "You wanted me to bark. Now you'll hear me roar." Aisha's smile had vanished. Her cocky posture crumbled into panic. Zoya stepped forward, her footsteps slow, deliberate like a predator closing in. The entire hallway, once filled with taunts and laughter, had gone still. The air felt heavier. Phones were still recording, but no one was laughing anymore. Aisha backed away, her voice shaky. "Look, it was just a joke. We didn't mean anything by it." But Zoya didn't stop. Not until she was inches from her face. "You made me bark like an animal," Zoya said, her voice calm, steady. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. And now you're scared because I stopped playing weak." Aisha's lips trembled. I didn't know you could fight. That's the thing," Zoya whispered. "You never bothered to know anything." Aisha turned to run, but Zoya moved with lightning speed. She grabbed her wrist and spun her around, trapping her arm behind her back. Aisha cried out, not in pain, but in fear. "I'm not going to hurt you," Zoya said, "but you're going to listen." Zoya released her and Aisha stumbled forward, nearly tripping. Then Zoya turned toward the crowd. Her voice rose not loud but clear, cutting through the dead silence. "This isn't strength. What they did, what so many of you stood by and watched, that's weakness. That's cruelty. Wearing makeup and school uniforms." She pointed to Leiber and Noor, still on the ground. "They thought silence meant I was nothing. But I was trained in silence. I learned discipline when they were learning how to go viral." A boy near the lockers mumbled, "She's right." Zoya looked directly into the nearest phone camera. "There are people like me in every hallway. Every school, the ones you call names, push around, treat like jokes. But we're not broken. We're just waiting for the right moment." She turned back to Aisha, now sitting on the floor, holding her wrist, stunned. "I barked once. Never again." With that, Zoya picked up her school bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked away past the crowd, past the phones, past the silence she had shattered with her strength. She didn't need applause. She didn't need revenge. She had reclaimed her voice, and no one, not ever again, would take that from her. By the next morning, everything had changed. The video of Zoya first being mocked, then standing tall and flipping her bullies like a trained warrior had spread like wildfire. It wasn't just being shared among students. Teachers had seen it. Parents had seen it. Even local community groups were discussing it. Some called it self-defense. Others called it an awakening. But one thing was clear: Zoya was no longer invisible dot at school. The atmosphere was completely different. As she walked through the main hallway, heads turned not with mockery but with respect, and a little fear. No one laughed. No one whispered. Students who used to ignore her now stepped aside. Even teachers glanced up from their papers when she passed, unsure of how to address what they had seen. In the front office, Principal Farah was already waiting. Her expression wasn't angry. It was serious. "Zoya, please come in," she said, motioning her toward the chair. Zoya sat down calmly, keeping her hands folded in her lap. "We saw the video," the principal said. "Multiple angles. It's hard to watch, but harder to ignore." Zoya said nothing. "You were provoked, humiliated, and you defended yourself. I won't lie, it was intense. But after reviewing the footage and hearing from other students, we've decided not to punish you." Zoya raised her eyebrows slightly. Principal Farah leaned forward. "In fact, I want to thank you." Zoya blinked. "Thank me?" The principal nodded. "You exposed something real. That bullying runs deeper than we realized. That so many stay silent out of fear. You had the courage to respond not just with strength, but with dignity. She pushed a form across the desk. "We're starting a new student-led safety program. I want you to be part of it. A mentor, if you're willing. There are others like you, strong but scared. They need someone who's walked through fire and came out standing tall." Zoya stared at the paper. Her hands didn't shake this time. She nodded slowly. "I'll do it." As she left the office, she passed Nur and Leiber sitting quietly on the bench outside. Their heads were low. No laughter. No phones. For the first time, they were silent. And Aisha, she hadn't shown up at all. Rumor was her parents had pulled her out of school too embarrassed by what had happened. Zoya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. That wasn't who she was. Instead, she walked toward her classroom, her head high, not because she needed attention, but because she finally understood her worth. That night, Zoya sat alone in her room, the dim light of a small desk lamp casting long shadows across the faded posters on her. Wall posters not of celebrities or pop stars, but of boxers, real fighters, women with bruised faces and raised fists. Warriors. In the corner of her room sat an old duffel bag, dusty but familiar. She opened it slowly. Inside were her wraps, gloves, and a photograph of her and Bob, her father, standing in front of an old underground gym. He was smiling. She was younger, barely 10, but already had her fists up in a boxer's stance. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the photo. "Remember, Zoya," he used to say, "the world will try to make you feel small, but in the ring, everyone is equal. Pain is real, but so is power." It had been 2 years since he passed away suddenly, quietly, leaving her and Amy behind with nothing but memories and unpaid bills. Zoya hadn't fought publicly since then, not because she couldn't, because she didn't want to feel the strength without him in her corner. But that hallway, the laughter, the way they stripped away her dignity, it had all brought the fire back. She wrapped her hands slowly, deliberately, just like Bob taught her. And when she looked up into the mirror, she didn't see a poor, quiet girl anymore. She saw a fighter, too. Weeks later, whispers started again, but this time in the city's underground fight circles. She's back. The silent girl from East Sector. The one they call Phantom. Her first match since returning was raw. Brutal. Clean. A taller opponent, stronger in size. Came at her with force, but Zoya didn't flinch. She moved like water, her footwork sharp, her eyes focused. One jab, the steps, a swift hook, then an uppercut that sent her opponent crashing to the mat. The crowd roared, not because they were shocked, because they remembered. She walked out of the ring as quietly as she had entered. No cheers, no posing, just calm breath and calm eyes. She didn't fight for fame. She fought for control, for voice, for every girl who had ever been made to feel small. Back at school, the story had changed. Zoya became the name people whispered, but now, with respect, younger students watched her in awe. Bullies hesitated before speaking. Even teachers saw her differently. She never raised her fists in those halls again. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough.